full stall, or we're just kind of floating down. So it's kind of an oddly stable thing that we're doing right here. Alright, welcome to the VSL Aviation YouTube channel. Today we're going to do 5 maneuvers with my friend Josh here from Free Pilot Training. Hey Josh.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Thanks for coming out today. This is going to be fun. So, you know, on the channel I always talk about how to prepare for your check ride using the Airman Certification Standards. That's what we've done so far. I've done some for-flight tips and such, but I haven't done anything really in the aircraft, and I wanted to do something a little different, and that's some maneuvers that are not on the Private Pilot Airman Certification Standards, but I think they're maneuvers you can go out with your CFI and do that are going to make you a better pilot. So that's what we're going to do today.
I'm pretty stoked about this. This is going to make me a better pilot.
Oh yeah. Flying always makes you a better pilot.
This is true. We'll do a quick run up here.
All right.
What's our weather here?
You got it, 3247.
Russellville Municipal Airport, Russellville, Arkansas. Automated weather observation 1253 Zulu. Wind calm. Visibility 6. Mist. Sky condition clear. Temperature 17 Celsius. Dew point 16 Celsius. Altimeter 3012. Remarks. Density altitude 500. Russellville Municipal Airport, Russellville, Arkansas.
Yeah. Okay. Now, let's just see something. Hold the carpet in there.
Okay.
So, turn carpet off. I don't want to see something here. 2000. Because basically we're in ideal carb icing conditions. I kind of want to see if this will do it this morning. So when we're in these ideal conditions, I like to set
2000
moderate power setting, pull the carpet, and then leave the carpet on a little bit. We saw that initial drop.
Yeah.
And then look for a subsequent rise.
That's right, yeah.
But that takes a few seconds for the ice in there to actually melt. And if we see any increase at all, then we know, hey, we for sure have carb heat. But right now, man, this is just perfect. It's like 70 degrees, really moist. That's when you're going to get carb heat.
Okay.
Or carb ice. Doesn't look like we have it, so that's good.
That's funny because I always, check for the drop, but I don't actually ever check for the rise. So that's good, something to think about.
Yeah, whenever you suspect it, I would pull carb heat, look for the drop, and then leave it on and look for another rise. And if you get the rise, you've got carb ice.
Alright, seatbelts on. We're on both. Carb heat's off, landing and taxi lights on. We're going to leave the flaps up at this takeoff, and finals clear.
Roger. I like to do a little Unicom check. Russellville Unicom, Cessna 3148 X-ray radio check. Let's see if the Gary's at the desk yet.
See if they're awake yet.
Yeah, it's right before they open, so they may not be sitting at the desk. We'll just have to remain vigilant, hope our radio's actually working.
Alright. And Russellville traffic, Skyhawk 3148 X-ray, taking runway 7 for a south departure, Russellville. Alright, we are ready to go. There's the scene of the crime from yesterday. We had a little bit of an incident in the old tail wheel, or I did, I should say. But you watched me helplessly. Alright, power's coming in, power set. Oil pressure is good. Gauge is a little bit sticky. I got airspeed coming alive. Looking for 55 knots. There it is. We are airborne.
Nice and smooth.
Lights off. Flaps are up. F takeoff checklist is complete. Oh wow, it could possibly be any smoother today.
Yeah, it's excellent up here.
If I turn my noise canceling off, I can actually hear.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, more right rudder. And Russellville traffic, Skyhawk 3148 X-ray. Making a right turn out off of 7, departing the airspace to the south, Russellville. So tell me a little bit about these 5 maneuvers.
So, all of these maneuvers are going to help you develop mastery of the aircraft.
Okay.
And that's a phrase you'll hear me and some other experienced CFIs use. And it is in the reference in the ACS and the airplane flying handbook, I think, as well. But basically, you want to master your airplane. You don't just want to master a maneuver. You want to or master the ACS and perform. I call them just kind of circus tricks.
Yeah.
That's not the point of flying. You want to have just total mastery of the airplane. And so what that means is you can control it in all these different aspects of flying and make it do what you want it to do. To get that whole picture, you really need to fly it in all of its areas of the envelope. And you'll hear that term, pushing the envelope, and kind of a good example of that, we could maybe even start with this one, is finding your actual approach speed, not just what the book says. So you've got the book answer for your short field approach speed. So you happen to know that off the top of your head for this plane?
It's 59 knots. It's in miles per hour. I never remember the miles per hour, but the translation is 59 knots.
Okay, so 59 knots. We know that is a number, so that's kind of one data point that would define kind of the envelope of the plane's operation. So you know that your approach speed's 59. Do you know how they come up with that number?
I believe it's 1.3 times your VSO.
Yeah, that's what, if in the airplane flying handbook, it tells us 1.3 VSO if our aircraft doesn't have a published approach speed for our short field. It's no faster than 1.3 VSO.
I always forget that. No faster than.
So stall speed is a great way to look at the edge of the envelope, because that's the slowest practical speed in different accelerations of flight that the wings are going to produce lift. So if we take it to a full stall, that's actually the edge of the envelope, because we can see, wherever that full stall happens, that's the highest angle of attack that our plane can create lift, actually right above that full stall speed.
Okay.
So doing this envelope discovery, you can do it at different weights of the aircraft. So the book answer says 59, but I bet if we loaded the airplane up with its maximum gross weight versus a minimum weight, like just you and maybe 10 gallons of fuel, those speeds are going to be different.
Okay.
And so you can do that with this exercise, is you can go out and find what the actual approach speed should be for your airplane.
So like
book answer.
A dynamic speed, we kind of do this in the C-130, the CNIMU or the FMS, it does it for us.
Yeah, and the C-130 or any airplane that has a really large weight envelope.
Yeah.
So the C-130 we could take off at 100,000 pounds, or we could take off at 175,000 pounds. So we have basically a 75,000 pound range that we can fly in. Yeah, and the C-130 or any airplane that has a really large weight envelope.
Yeah.
So the C-130 we could take off at 100,000 pounds, or we could take off at 175,000 pounds. So we have basically a 75,000 pound range that we can fly in. Whereas as this plane, we've got basically your basic empty weight is probably around, 1900?
I think this one's
so we'll just say 2,000.
14.
We'll say you have an airplane with an empty weight of 2,000 and a useful load of 2,500, or a maximum weight of 3,000. So you just have 1,000 pound. So you could either take off at 2,000 or you can take off at 3,000. So you're not going to see the drastic shift of numbers that we do in the C-130. So it's not that the plane's going to handle drastically different, but you can go up and see how it handles just slightly different with different weight changes.
Okay.
All right. So what I like to do with this one, we're up at a safe altitude. We want to clear our area, of course.
All right.
So
I'll do some clearing turns here while you're talking about it.
Make a couple turns. I'll make a radio call. Russellville traffic, Cessna 48 X-rays operating about 8 miles south of the field, 3,000 feet and below Russellville. Alright, we've let everybody know we're down here. We do have this wilderness area right over here, or wildlife refuge.
That's right, Hollow Bend.
Yep, Hollow Bend. So if you want to just kind of follow the river right here,
Okay.
we can stay north of the river. We've got some good fields underneath us as options if we have any problems.
Sounds good. Alright.
Okay, so let's get the plane in a whatever configuration we would do a short field approach, which would be full flaps, right?
Alright, so full flaps, so we got fuel selector valve on both. We'll go ahead and go mixture best power here. Throttle set. We'll start slowing us down. I'll leave the landing and lights off.
Final 27 mountain traffic.
Alright, we're in the wide arc. We'll start lowering flaps. Alright, so I'm just looking for we're going to do a power off stall basically.
Yep, power off stall. Landing configuration. And we want to take it to a full brake.
We want to take it to a full brake.
We want to really see where that is.
Alright, we're on an eastbound heading. Headed down. Pitch for 60. We'll touch that 60 knots. Then we'll nose her up here. And she'll stall right here on the horizon. Looks like just below 40 power.
Yeah, so we'll, just to be safe, we'll just say 35 knots.
Okay.
Is where that happened. So we can do 35 times 1.3 is 45.5.
45.5.
So that's our actual landing configuration, lower limit, I would call that, because that's full flaps.
Okay.
So that's one data point. So we want to define the edge of our flight regime. So
okay.
We know that if we have full flaps in,
alright, clear left.
as long as we keep the airplane, and I would add a buffer to this, so we've got 45, that's already 1.3 over that. We could round up to the nearest whole number and just call it 50.
Okay, that sounds good.
So
50.
as long as we're not below 50, we're we're a really, I would call that a safe flight regime. So with full flaps on final on approach speed, we don't want to see anything below 50. So now let's do the same thing with no flaps. So we're going to take no flaps. This is our next data point.
And this is power off stall with no flaps.
Power off stall with no flaps.
Alright, clear left. I'm going to come back to left here.
Kind of cleared the area, and again, we want to do a full brake stall here.
Okay. And it's interesting that you should say 50 knots because the bottom of the white arc is exactly 52.
Traffic 202, turning left downwind, runway 35 south.
I believe what they say
so that's probably really close to what they're suggesting there. So let's see what we get with flaps up here.
Alright, carpeet's coming on. Flaps are up this time. Idle power. There's 60, we'll pitch for 60 here. And then we'll nose up. We'll see what she stalls at. There it is.
Okay, I saw 45 knots. 45 times 1.3 is 58, and again we'll round up to that, we'll call that 60.
Okay.
So with flaps up, we don't want to see anything less than 60 with flaps up. So we've got this range of 50 to 60 with flaps up being 60 at our lower limit and full flaps at 50.
Okay.
We know those speeds by adding 1.3 or multiplying it by 1.3. We're basically putting in like a 30% fudge factor.
Okay.
And buffer above stall speed. So those would be safe speeds to fly. I could see 60 with no flaps, and I could see 50 on the airspeed indicator at full flaps. And that's a safe, controllable airspeed. So now let's try that out. Let's go full flaps.
Okay.
And
we're in the wide arc here. We'll go carpet on here.
And there's something called the PAC Method and the PAC. So the P stands for a pitch, power setting. The A stands for attitude, and the C stands for configuration. So what we're going to do is we're going to find the PAC setting
Okay.
For our max, for our short field approach, which is at 50 knots. So we're at 50 knots. We want to find,
but that's what we want.
yeah, so it looks like you're, I'm looking at the internal, so knots. So
oh, yeah, you're
we're
right.
at 45, so pitch over for 50. Okay, there's our 50. So our attitude is slightly below the horizon. We have a 500 foot a minute descent, and our configuration is full flaps. Look at our power setting now. Our power setting for this
1700.
is 1700. So now we have this data point. Now we've defined our envelope. We know on a short field approach we want to set 1700 RPM. We want to set the attitude slightly, just basically the orange ball kind of right on the horizon.
Yeah.
And full flaps, and that's going to equate a 50 knot approach speed with a 400 to 500 foot a minute descent. You can let go of the plane.
Holy crap.
Once it's trimmed out. So now when we say, fly the numbers, that's what we're flying. We're flying this PAC setting.
That's crazy. We always did pitch and power settings, in pilot training, but I've never actually done it in this.
And so now we've got this nice data point. Now, notice our descent rate is a little lower than what we'd want. We can change that now with just power. We don't have to worry about pitch.
Yeah.
So do me a favor and pull the power back just 100 RPM. Pull it to 16.
Okay. You just
don't touch the trim and just see what happens to our vertical speed. See how it increased?
Yeah.
Okay. Now pull it back to 15. Again, we're not going to touch the trim. Watch our airspeed.
As she pitches down on her own.
Yep, our airspeed's going to try to stabilize right there around 50, and our descent rate increased to 700 feet a minute.
Wow.
So this is an example of how power controls our descent rate, and our pitch is controlling our airspeed, because watch what happens when I just add a little bit of back pressure. So instead of parking this on the white line there, I pull it up just above the horizon. Watch what happens to my airspeed.
Yeah, she's deteriorating there.
Yeah, it drops off quite a bit, and I'll hold that, and it had a little bit of effect on my vertical speed, but you'll see my vertical speed actually starts to increase slightly, because now we're kind of entering that stall regime almost.
That is interesting.
Okay, you can recover from that.
My controls.
Your controls.
Alright, flaps are coming up.
So that's an example of a PAC setting, and what you can do in your airplane is you can find these PAC settings for different phases of flight. So final approach would be good. Initial approach fix inbound. If you're an instrument pilot, finding a PAC setting for, that would be kind of a clean configuration. In a 172, I think clean at 100 knots at the final or at the initial approach fix inbound to the FAF, that would be good. If you're just a private pilot, I would say anytime you're approaching a field within about 10 miles of the field, slowing down to a clean configuration at about 100 knots in a 172 to 110. That would be a good PAC setting for you to find. It's going to vary for each type of aircraft, so it's hard for me to say, it's impossible to say this is a PAC setting everybody needs to know. You have to master your aircraft, so you have to go out and do this exercise in your actual airplane and find what those power settings are. So remember, it's a power, attitude, and configuration. Those three things will equal an airspeed. So don't try to fly an airspeed. Fly power, attitude, and configuration, and that will equal an airspeed.
Okay, that's pretty awesome.
Okay, so one last thing, well, not last thing, one continued thing kind of building on that is, here, my controls for a second.
Controls?
My controls. So we found that 60 knots was our unaccelerated, clean VSO.
Yeah.
Right? I think too often pilots understand those numbers as being static. So a key question is, will the plane just stall at 60 knots in the clean power off configuration? Or could I do something to the plane that would make it stall earlier?
Yeah, if you're in a bank, that's one.
Okay, so a level bank is the key thing there.
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
It has to be accelerated. So let's kind of play around with this for a second. We're at 2,000. We just cleared the area. We're south of the river, clear Hollow Bend. Looks good. So, again, I'm going to pull the power just to verify, 60 is our VSO. So I'm going to hold 2,000. Should hear the stall horn here shortly. There, so that's the lower limit of our airspeed that we wanted to fly.
Yeah.
There's the stall horn coming on. And then right there around 45, I think, is where we got the brake last time.
Yeah.
Okay, there it is. So we're going to recover from that just to gain a little bit of more altitude. And to do this safely, I don't like to do this maneuver to the full brake. I like it to the stall horn.
Yeah.
So let's find where that stall horn's coming on. Again, we're at 2,000. I think the stall horn was right around 55.
I think it was as well, just under, I think. No?
Yeah, about 56, 58, somewhere around there. Okay, so power off. Power off. Stall speed indicator was at 58.
Yeah, 58.
Okay, now let's do it in a 30-degree bank and see what happens. So now we're power off. I'm nice and coordinated. And it's going to be a level turn.
And I'm watching for you here. Getting it at 62.
Yeah, and I was losing a little bit of altitude there, but it was about 5 to 10 knots higher.
Yeah.
It was kind of hard to tell. I think I just barely heard it. And then again, I was descending, so that wasn't a good example.
But in a turn, it definitely increased our stall speed.
Right, and then wings level. So we use turns to talk about that because that's typically where we're adding load factor. So to make a level turn, I have to bank and then pull.
Yeah.
So we're getting a little heavier in the seat.
So this raises a good question. I always want to know the answer, but like if you don't pull, if you just roll wings level, are you actually increasing your stall speed, or are you just...
Exactly. So that's kind of what I'll show now, is we can not increase it at all. We can just go into a bank of 30 degrees. We're not trying to hold altitude at this point.
And so...
What we're trying to hold is just basically 1G.
Yeah.
And so we're in a 500 foot a minute descent. So as we spiral down, we should see the stall come on at basically the same time it was when it's level.
This is something I've always wanted to know the answer to because, like,
There it is, basically right at the same spot.
I always raise this point because if you don't pull any G's, your stall speed technically is the same as what it was in level flight.
Right, and that chart, and the Cessna has that chart for your stall speeds at different banks. At the top of that chart, it says level turn.
Okay.
So that's the key, is it has to be a level turn. So often it's a lot of people, and I think we're broadly kind of wrong on this. We think the most dangerous spot in the pattern is the base to final turn.
Yeah.
When actually, statistically, it's really the crosswind turn. It's on a departure stall are way more common than the base to final stall. One of the reasons is our base to final isn't a level turn.
Yeah.
Right? It's a descending turn, so we don't have as much load factor.
Exactly.
Whereas your crosswind turn is actually a climbing turn. So you're more likely to have more load factor, so you're way more likely to have a stall spin accident on a crosswind turn where you're trying to outperform the airplane. And what I mean by that is the plane's not wanting to climb and you're trying to force it nose high. That's an accelerated stall where you actually increase your stall speed. So let's demonstrate this.
Okay.
So we did a turn and straight and level, and it's right around 58 is where the stall horn's coming on. So now I'm not going to do either of those. I'm going to be wings level, and I'm just going to pitch up. And I'm going to pitch up about 2 Gs. And
so this is the second weird maneuver we're about to do?
Yeah, this is an accelerated stall, but we're not going to do it in a turn. We're just going to do it straight up. We've cleared the area. We're going to look above us because we're fixing to do kind of a zoom climb thing here. Okay. So we're going to go power to idle, and tell me when you see the stall horn.
Right there, 80.
Yeah.
Just under 80. 79.
And we didn't bank at all, right?
No.
But you noticed as soon as I released back pressure, stall horn went away.
Yeah.
Right? So as soon as we took load factor off, it went away.
This is, this has been my mindset for, years now, but nobody has ever shown me in the airplane, so this is really good.
Yeah. So where this can come in is in a steep turn, right? And this is probably the first exposure you have as a pilot to an accelerated stall.
Yeah.
You may not even notice it, but we're going to clear over here to the right, and what I'm going to do is a steep turn. I'm going to do the steep turns, and I tell you what, we're going to go up to we're going to go up to 3,000.
Okay.
The reason I'm going to 3,000 is if you look in the commercial ACS, this is one maneuver that they want you to do at 3,000 feet.
Yeah.
And it's really, field elevation below us is about 400 feet, so we're going to go up to about 3,400.
Okay.
Just so we're in line with those ACS standards for the safety. Now, an accelerated stall, you're going to take right to the stall horn and then just reduce back pressure, and it'll immediately, you'll immediately break the stall. Something that's kind of interesting to think about, but a plane that's at 0G doesn't have a stall speed.
Interesting.
So it's a 0G plane won't stall. So if you unload the wing cannot stall. But normally, we're always at 1G. So
Yeah.
we do have a 1G stall speed. And those are the ones we've looked at before. Our VSO speed that we were calculating, those were all at 1G. And then we just demonstrated how if we add G-forces, we increase stall speed. Now, adding G-forces effectively increases the weight of the airplane.
Yeah.
So what we're proving there is that heavier airplanes have to fly faster.
Yeah, in order to not stall.
Yeah,
basically.
so a heavier airplane. So you can make an airplane heavy in two different ways. You could add literal weight to it,
Yeah.
or we could add G-force to it by adding load factor. So you can imagine that if we were at max gross weight here, and we did a 2G accelerated stall, that the stall speed would be even higher. Right?
Okay, yeah.
And what this is demonstrating is how dangerous it can be to make the plane turn faster to kind of compensate for overshooting, base to final type situation.
Yeah.
Where if you see that you're overshooting, you increase bank angle and increase back pressure. What you're doing is you're increasing your stall speed. And
So if you're low and you're turning base to final, that could be where the base to final turns deadly. Is when you're pulling G's and you're also at a high.
Yep. And
turn rate.
if you have a plane, it's there's some devices out there that will actually show you G-force or load factor.
Yeah.
If you wanted to do, and I wish we had one with us here today, we could actually do this, but your stall speed increases by the square root of your load factor. So,
I did not know that.
So 2 G's, the square root of 2 is about 1.4. So my stall speed, we can test it out right here. I could do my best to test it. I'll talk you through this since we don't have actual. Here, your controls.
My controls.
So we already found that our full stall speed, or our stall warning horn was coming on at 58.
Yeah.
Right. So 58 is, we're going to call that our stall speed, even though it's not. It's just our stall indicator speed is 58. So if we multiply that by 1.4, which 1.4 is the square root of 2.
Yeah.
So 58 times 1.4 is 81.2 knots.
Okay.
So, my controls?
Your controls.
My controls. Area is clear. So what I'm going to do is I know, because of just physics, right, that our 60-degree bank turn level has to be 2 G's.
Yeah.
So even without a load meter in this plane, I know that if I roll into a level 60-degree bank turn, my stall indicator speed should increase to about 81 knots.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm going to do here.
I'm going to watch for
I'm going to roll into a 60-degree bank turn, hold it level, and I want you to see if our stall horn comes on at 80.
Okay.
Now, in order for this to really work, I'm going to have to accelerate here, level, because I want to start the maneuver a little bit faster.
90, 100 knots.
Yep, so there's about my 90. I'm going to pull power to idle. I'm going to roll.
79.
There we go. So within a knot of what we predicted just with math.
That's crazy.
As a 2G increased our stall speed to 81. So that's an example of how load factor is directly related to our stall speed.
That's interesting. That's super cool.
Alright, so that's our accelerated stall demo. We did the PAC demo. Now that we're up here at 3,500, I'm going to show you another stall. That's something that you don't run across until you're CFI.
Yeah.
But I think it's useful for all the ratings, and that's the cross-controlled stall.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So this is kind of interesting because the cross-controlled stall the way the FAA explains it in the airplane flying handbook is that you're on a base to final and you try to use rudder to compensate. To me, that sets you up more for a skid than a slip. And again, a cross control is referencing a slip, not a skid.
Yeah.
Now, another place that we use slips in is not base to final, but it's a forward slip to landing.
Yeah, forward slip to landing.
Yeah, that's a real common way that we see slips. And that's low to the ground, and then we're not coordinated.
Yeah.
And we're also slow. This sounds like it's really dangerous, right? We're low to the ground, we're not coordinated, and we're slow. So why don't we have planes that just crash left and right doing forward slips to landing?
Well, I mean, we align the nose right before we touch down, or you...
Well, not exactly. The reason is what causes a spin is basically one wing stops flying and another wing is still flying. Right? So one wing stalls, the other one flies, and that causes a roll moment, and it'll actually literally roll the airplane upside down. Now, in a slip, let's set it up right here, and you can actually see. So I'm going to pull to idle. I'm going to give full right rudder, and left wing down. So now notice that my low wing is flying in front of my high wing, right? Yeah. So my high wing actually has the higher angle of attack.
Yeah.
So if I were to stall, that high wing would drop.
That high wing's going to drop.
And I would actually momentarily, I would have a chance to recover from this. But oddly enough, in a 172, what I'm going to do is we're in a turn here. And this looks like we're going to spin here, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Watch what happens. We're in a full stall.
This is unbelievable.
We're in a full stall, and we're just kind of floating down. It's kind of an oddly stable thing that we're doing right here. And you know, for somebody that hasn't practiced this, going into getting that slow with the ball, you saw the ball, it was all the way to the side, right? Yet we still weren't spinning.
You know, you showed me this when I took my CFI check ride, and I just was blown away.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I did it the way, you know, the airplane flying handbook teaches it, and you're like, yeah, this is fine. But this, and then you showed me this, and I just could not, I was blown away at how airplanes are still flying.
Yeah, airplanes are still flying, as happy as can be. And that's because our forward wing, our retreating wing, has the higher angle of attack, and it's high. Now, in a skid, the opposite thing happens, and that's our low wing has the higher angle of attack.
Ah, okay.
It's the inside of the turn, and so it will fully stall, and we'll just roll right over into a spin. But there is no reason, there is no merit in a skid.
Yeah.
Right? A slip is actually a useful thing that we use, right? In fact, the ACS demands that you show proficiency in the use of a slip for landing. There is no merit at all in a skid.
You just made a mistake if you skid.
Right. A skid, no merit in a skid. There's no usefulness of a skid. At least for 99% of pilots. You know, you take aerobatic, you know, crazy aerobatic maneuvers. Yeah. They're going to use the skid purposely to do some fun things with the airplane. But in day-to-day flying, there's no use for a skid. A slip is something that we need to be proficient in. So I think you should learn what a stall feels like in a slip, and that's what we just demonstrated.
That's great.
And it shouldn't be anything scary. So if I was a CFI or a student, what I would want to do is see, okay, let's set up for a basic forward slip to landing.
Okay.
I've got this field out here in front that I'll pretend I'm setting up for.
Yeah. And
I'll put it into a gentle slip here. So I've got full right rudder, and all I'm going to do is maintain that heading, or that track.
Yeah.
And I'm going to pick the nose up. There's the stall right there. And again, if I want to recover, I don't have to do anything real crazy. I just remove those flight controls. I didn't even add power, and we recovered.
Reduce the G forces.
You know? Yeah, reduce the G, and we've recovered. All right.
That is
so
super interesting.
that is cross-controlled stalls. We did the PAC method. We did accelerated stalls. That's 4.
Yeah.
I think our 5th one was going to be our ground speed competition.
Yeah. Oh, that's number 3. We got the fungoidal as well.
Oh, the fungoidal, yeah. Fungoidal stability. We're at 3,000. This is going to be perfect. This is kind of related to the PAC method. So we're going to set a power, airspeed, power, attitude, and configuration. And what I'm going to do here is, it always works to set I'd like the bottom of the green arc for this maneuver.
Okay.
So we're level at 3,000. I'm going to go 2,200 RPM. And I'm just going to let the airplane settle into this power setting right here. And what we can do is, while we're at it, we can figure out, okay, what is the PAC airspeed for 2,200 RPM clean.
Okay.
So our power, 22. Attitude, right on the horizon.
Yeah.
We can also look outside at our attitude.
Yeah.
I like to speak in thirds, so we have about 1/3 ground, 2/3 sky, maybe 1/4 ground, 3/4 sky. That's about, level. And then our configuration is clean. So this equates, looks like 85, 86 knots. So that's our PAC setting for 2,200 RPM. Okay, so I like to do this with like brand new pilots, maybe first or second flight. But you can enjoy this as a more experienced pilot. Let's make a prediction of, if we go full power, what's going to happen to the plane? What's going to happen to our airspeed? Well, primarily.
Actually, initially I think you're going to get a spike, but then the airplane's going to try to climb on you.
Yeah, so let's see what happens. So I'm not going to touch the yoke. I've got it trimmed out. It's pretty happy. We're nice and level. I'm going to go full power.
Yeah, so initially we got a 2-knot increase roughly. Now it's starting to decrease.
Yep. So our airspeed, so we added power and our airspeed goes down. That's kind of interesting to see as a newer pilot. You're like, oh, well, in the car, when I step on the accelerator, I go faster. Not necessarily in a plane. So our airspeed decreased.
But our attitude increased.
Yep. And then as our attitude increased and airspeed went down, we have less lift going over the wings. So our nose dropped.
Yeah.
As our nose dropped, airspeed went back up, creates more lift, brings the nose up. So see, watch the airspeed, how it's fluctuating now. It goes down, our nose drops, airspeed climbs. As airspeed climbs, the nose comes back up.
Left downwind 22 RPM.
Here comes the nose back up, our airspeed will start to decrease again.
This is what we're talking about dynamic stability, and that
and
the nose is basically hunting.
And kind of the neat thing is, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to try to catch it on this part of the demo right here. I'm going to go back to 22, which is the PAC setting that we had previously set, and it's going to level off because it's trimmed for 2,200 RPM at about 85 miles an hour. And all we did there is we climbed a little bit.
Oh, that's super interesting. And this raises a good point, because I'm talking about this in one of my videos about how the trim setting is basically, this whole entire purpose of the trim is to balance the airplane.
Correct. Yeah.
It's creating the downforce that balances the plane.
Right, and you're trimmed for a specific airspeed.
Yeah, exactly. That is super interesting.
Negative 700 Celsius flying to Canny.
Yeah, it's just holding that now. Now that you put that power setting back in, she's just holding.
Yep, just holding it. Okay, so we did our fungoidal stability. We're up here higher. Do you want to do the ground speed?
Yeah, let's do the ground speed.
So this is something that I've just started doing here in the past few years, because we tend to treat slow flight as we're trying to find a specific airspeed, and what I like to do that shows real mastery of the airplane, I think, is try to fly the slowest ground speed possible.
Yeah.
We're not going to care about two things that you would care about during the check ride, and that's our airspeed and our stall warning horn.
Yeah.
So we're going to kind of ignore our stall warning horn, and we're not going to pay attention to our airspeed. We're just we want the airplane to stay flying, so we don't want to take it to a full stall. But but we don't necessarily care about the airspeed. So the first thing we have to do is kind of determine where is our wind. So right now we see 88 knots.
So we're showing 80 knots on the airspeed indicator and 88 knots, 89. So we basically have a tailwind right now.
Yeah, so I'm going to do a nice slow turn, looking at my ground speed. This is kind of a wind turn, and we can also do a clearing turn. And we're going to see, okay, our airspeed's climbing as we turn to the north. So I think we have a wind probably out of the southwest.
Okay,
So
yeah.
we're going to continue this turn. Yeah, we might have wind due south. We're just going to keep turning. I see the nuclear power plant, the steam rising off of that.
Yeah.
It does seem to be coming from the
this
south.
way. Yeah.
So that was our highest ground speed, as we were facing northwest. So maybe southeast is where our wind is coming out of.
Okay.
So there's 86, 85. That's the slowest we've seen. Okay, it's dropping pretty
81,
pretty
80,
good. 80,
78,
78.
77, 76, 75, 74, 72, 71. It's slowing down. And we still have 80 knots on that indicated airspeed, 71, 72.
So now it's climbing back up. So I think our we're just going to call due south is probably our peak wind.
Pretty much exactly 180, 190, I think.
Okay, so there's 71. So now we found where the wind is. So that's going to help us get our slowest practical speed.
That's 70 knots, 69 on
There
the
we go.
ground speed.
All right, so I'll let you try first.
Okay.
So I want you to hold 3,700 feet is where we're at.
Okay.
So hold this altitude and fly the slowest ground speed you can fly. Do whatever it takes.
Okay, we're going to start slowing us down here. All right, we're in the wide arc. Start lowering the flaps here.
Okay.
60 knots indicated. All right, we're full flaps.
All right, you're at 45, 43 knots.
There's 50 on the indicated. I'm still slowing us down on purpose here. We're going to get to this. There's a stall warning at 45 knots.
Yep, you can't lose any altitude.
Okay, we are dropping slightly. I'm nosing up here. We're going to take some power.
You're at 35 knots.
45 on the indicated.
Yep, you've lost a little altitude.
Catching it here.
36 knots.
Altitude's coming back up. 45 on the indicated.
Okay, there's 34 knots again. Looks like 34.
34.
Yep.
I'm going to pull the power back just a touch.
Alright, 34 knots. That's your entry.
34 knots ground speed.
Alright, my controls?
Your controls.
My controls. So we're kind of in slow flight here. Now, to go slower, we're on the backside, so you actually have to add power. So I'm going to add full power.
No way.
And I'm going to continue pulling back. You call out my airspeeds.
26.
There we go.
24.
Oh, there's the beginning of a stall. I got to reduce that power just a little bit.
25. 31.
There we go. So you actually need more power to go slower. This is the area of reverse command, basically. We're on the backside of that power curve.
You know, I have always confused the region of reverse command. Nobody's really explained it to me in this manner.
Yeah.
It actually makes sense, though.
So, yeah, this is the
27.
perfect example, because if I don't want to stall, I need to add power. Watch what happens when I pull power and not stall.
Nose is over.
Yep. What happens to my airspeed?
28, 32, 37.
So it goes up.
Yeah, 43.
So, because I was in that area of reverse command, I needed more power to go slower.
That is super interesting.
So that's why I was able to just crush you on the ground speed competition.
Okay, I don't know how many times I've read the stuff on the region of reverse command and I just get confused. But that actually makes sense.
Yep, you need more power to go slower, because you can really only do that doing a competition. Like, it doesn't have to be a competition, but you have to ignore the stall horn. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You can't really get in the area, the region of reverse command, when recovering before you get the stall horn. You'll always be past the stall horn. It'll be active.
So the stall horn is really an angle of attack indicator. It's not really a stall indicator.
Correct.
So much.
Yeah, and really you can think of, like, real, just generally speaking, the region of reverse command is really when the airplane transitions from flying with the wings to flying with the propeller. You're like going from airplane mode to helicopter mode.
Gotcha.
You know, that's kind of...
That is the best way to explain it right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go. Like I said, I think doing those maneuvers, none of those maneuvers are in the private pilot ACS.
No.
I think all of them will make you a better pilot. And it gives you something to do rather than go out and just do a maneuver that's listed in the book. You're actually discovering things about your airplane.
Yeah.
I think that's really, really important if you're going to master the airplane.
You know, a lot of these maneuvers you learn, you know, doing CFI stuff, but having this discussion actually makes it make way more sense. Like, you know, you just go out and do the maneuver and it's like, oh, I just did this and I was successful, but what am I actually trying to accomplish? I have no idea sometimes, you know?
Right. Let's head back. I'm gonna do a landing. I haven't done a landing in a while.
Yeah, you got it, man.
Russellville traffic, Cessna 3148 X-ray, approximately 5 miles south of the field. We'll be crossing midfield for a left downwind 7, Russellville. Alright, one of my favorite landings to do is a soft field. I just love doing soft field landings.
Oh, me too.
So I'm just going to talk my way through this.
Yeah, let's do it.
Soft field landing. We can add this on the video.
I always love talking about stuff. I think I can always learn something.
Alright, pattern altitude's 1400. We're going to go ahead and get our lights on. We can even go ahead and pull our carb heat, get that ready to go. Again, I'm kind of paranoid about carb heat on days like today. It's just the perfect conditions of humid and kind of cooler weather. So if you pull carb heat, this is kind of another thing you can do. Pulling carb heat at higher power settings is actually a lot more effective than pulling it after you pull the idle, if you think about it. Because when you pull the idle, you just reduce your exhaust gas temperature down really low. And so your heat exchanger isn't heating the air up as much to melt that ice in the carb.
Okay.
So really, it's good to pull carb heat when you're at a higher power setting. Your exhaust gas temperatures are higher, and it's putting more heat into the air that's going to the carburetor, which will melt the ice faster. That's what you want. So if you're in the habit of pulling carb heat after you pull throttle, I'd say that's probably a less effective technique of pulling the carb heat before you pull the power.
You know, you're the first person to ever tell me that and actually explain it, and that actually makes sense.
Yeah, so now I'm adding power. You know, I'm up in the green arc with my power. My exhaust gas temperatures are probably around 1200 degrees, so I'm putting a lot of heat into that carburetor. Am I losing performance? Yeah, but I'm not real concerned about full performance right now. I'm trying to land, so I don't really care that it's reducing my performance slightly. What I care is that I'm putting a lot of heat into that carburetor, and I'm making sure that there's absolutely no ice there. Alright, so here we are at pattern altitude. We're a very empty pattern today, both on the radio and visually, so I'm not going to do the preferred method of the teardrop entry. I'm just going to cross midfield and enter left downwind. Russellville traffic, Cessna 3148 X-ray, crossing midfield for left downwind, runway 7, Russellville. Alright, so for a soft field approach, I don't care about landing point as much as I care about touchdown softness, right? I want to touch down really soft, and I want to protect the nose. The nose, you know, pretend like the nose is an egg, a raw egg. I don't want to crack that egg. So I want to touch down on the mains, and I want to keep the nose of the airplane, that raw egg, off the runway as long as possible. So I'm not really worried about hitting that aim point like I am in a short field. I'm worried about a soft touchdown. So we're going to use that PAC method that we learned about earlier, right? So we're going to go to 17, carb heat, and we're going to add some flaps. 2, 3, there we go. And we're going to trim for an airspeed of 70. I like this on the downwind. We're just going to lose a little bit of altitude. There's 70, 500 feet a minute. You can see I can almost fly this base turn. Watch this. Russellville traffic, Cessna 48 X-ray, left base, runway 7, Russellville.
Just using rudders?
I'm just using the rudders. Yeah, it's so trimmed out and stable. I can just fly it with the rudders around base.
Okay.
Obviously, you don't want to do that. You want to maintain positive aircraft control. But my control pressures are really light. I mean, I'm a big fan of like just trimming the airplane where you can just fly it with a couple fingers. Alright, I am going to use full flaps, but I'm going to wait to add those until I'm on final. Because I like, on this maneuvering flight for base, I like to have a little more airspeed, or a little less angle of attack, and be a little more maneuverable, and then I'll add my full flaps on final.
Okay.
Still holding at 70. Approach path looks pretty good. I can see the pappies. I've got one red, so I'm slightly high. I'll fix that here. As we're rolling out on final, here comes full flaps.
Niner 647 X-ray, Echo, excuse me, is 8 miles inbound Russellville from northeast.
Russellville traffic, Cessna 48 X-ray, short final 7, full stop Russellville. Alright, so we're going to use those PAC Method, or those speeds that we found. So I'm flying 55 right now, and we know this is a safe speed because we went up and we just did stalls, and we did our 1.3 times BSO and then added a buffer factor. So flying in at 50 right here, this is a really safe, stable airspeed for our current configuration. Not much of a wind, but I do have a little bit of right rudder pressure in here. And this is kind of, I'm going to do a couple things with the throttle here. I'm reducing throttle right now to land, but kind of listen to this, watch the RPM here. So I'm going to go to idle,
Yep, and back
and
up.
then I'm going to add power. Notice the nose wheel hasn't touched down yet.
Yeah.
I'm just riding a wheelie down the runway, almost at a takeoff attitude, and then I'm going to slowly reduce power and let the nose settle. So the nose finally touched down there.
Yeah.
I finally cracked the egg, but we're at a really slow airspeed.
Yeah.
The kind of the tricky thing with soft field is we practice it on asphalt, so we get kind of this misconception about what it is. We would actually need a lot of power, a lot more power, if we were on an actual soft field, because it's super draggy and it would be trying to pull us down, and we would need to add power to even taxi. You kind of experienced this yesterday.
Yeah.
In doing actual soft field in a tailwheel aircraft. Let me make this clear call here. Russellville traffic, Cessna 48 X-rays, clear of all runways, taxiing to park, Russellville. So you experienced this firsthand when we landed, and you were having to add power to just get to the end of the runway.
Yeah, just to get to the end of the runway.
So absolutely no braking, and that's in a tailwheel airplane. If on the nose, if we're wanting to protect the nose actually wouldn't be above the ground. It would be in the grass.
Yeah.
We would be having full back pressure just to keep the prop from even digging down further.
Yeah.
So really, we're just trying to decrease the amount of strut compression we're getting. We're not really trying to ride a wheelie, but if you're not riding a wheelie on the asphalt, then you're going to have too much strut compression on an actual soft field. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So we want to practice riding a wheelie on asphalt, because if we were doing the same control pressures on grass, then the nose wheel wouldn't be above the ground. It would be on the ground, but we would limit that strut compression. And what we're trying to do is protect our prop from obstacles and debris on that soft field. So you experienced this firsthand when we landed, and you were having to add power to just get to the end of the runway.
Yeah, just to get to the end of the runway.
So absolutely no braking, and that's in a tailwheel airplane. If on the nose, if we're wanting to protect the nose actually wouldn't be above the ground. It would be in the grass.
Yeah.
We would be having full back pressure just to keep the prop from even digging down further.
Yeah.
So really, we're just trying to decrease the amount of strut compression we're getting. We're not really trying to ride a wheelie, but if you're not riding a wheelie on the asphalt, then you're going to have too much strut compression on an actual soft field. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So we want to practice riding a wheelie on asphalt, because if we were doing the same control pressures on grass, then the nose wheel wouldn't be above the ground. It would be on the ground, but we would limit that strut compression. And what we're trying to do is protect our prop from obstacles and debris on that soft field.
Russellville.
I can't believe, like, I don't know how many times I've done grass landings, but, and you know, I've done some of these maneuvers, they're required for a CFI, but I still learned a ton today. I don't know how, but man, I do think those weird maneuvers made me a better pilot.
Yeah, I think they will. Well, thank you so much for flying. I had fun.
Yeah, I did too, man. Thanks
It
for
was a
coming
nice,
with me.
smooth morning.
Yeah, it was. It couldn't possibly have been better weather, but I really appreciate you doing this.
Yeah. Well, hey, now maybe you can ask that J3 pilot if you want to go fly because you're a tail wheel pilot now.
I know. Maybe I should. Does it have heel brakes?
It does. It has wheel brakes.
I'm still a little nervous on that, but...
All right. Here we are.
Right. I'll take over from here.
All right, you got it.
I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching, guys.